sports fans, and welcome to the Heavy Hitters Podcast, the ultimate destination for your weekly dose of sports excitement with co-host Darnell Duff.
Now it's Sandvin, right point with it, left circle, Paul wants it, fires it, scores! Ashton Paul, welcome to Dauphin!
And co-host Jeff Henson.
Williams, blue line, shot, rebound! Oh, you hit! Score! Score! Morgan McLean! The Storm are AJHL champions!
Whether you're into goals, touchdowns, three-pointers, or home runs, we've got it all covered. We're here to bring you the latest updates, witty commentary, and a whole lot of sports love. So, whether you're tuning in from the sidelines or the comfort of your own couch, get ready for a fast-paced ride through the world of sports. Strap in, because it's game time on the Heavy Hitters Podcast.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time it is for you, but nonetheless, welcome back to the Heavy Hitter Podcast. This is episode number 11. My name is Darnell Duff, known as Duffy. Always a pleasure to be joined by Jeff Henson, who goes by Henny. Jeff, 11 episodes. Last week, we talked a little bit about you traveling to Regina, who we ironically enough had the new voice of the Saskatchewan Roughriders, Dave Thomas, on not too long ago. But you had an interesting note when you came back to work from your travels.
Yeah, I did. You know, like I said, went down to Regina for the weekend, and on the way back, happened to drive by the tiny little village, and I mean tiny. Apparently, I think the population is around 30 to 40 people of Duff, Saskatchewan. And it got me thinking there, Mr. Duff, that we need to start a campaign to have you become the honorary mayor of Duff, Saskatchewan. I mean, why wouldn't people want to have you as their mayor? You already share the same name as the town. Why? I mean, what would your platform be, first off? What would your platform? What would you like to bring to the people of Duff, Saskatchewan?
I think a great place to live. I think that'd be first. I don't know. You gotta put some pressure on me here. Like, what if someone from Duff, Saskatchewan is listening now? And we've also talked about in the past that we need to go on a road trip. We were going to go to Winnipeg for a whiteout party, but the Jets, they're out. Now we have to decide, what's our first road trip going to be?
I think the first road trip has got to be to Duff, Saskatchewan.
We got to find out their municipal office and like set this up. Maybe get a camera or something out there.
Do a streeter. Duffy for mayor.
It'll be maybe my only chance to be a mayor. So if you are from Duff, Saskatchewan, a big shout out to you. We appreciate you. We also appreciate all of our other listeners who tune into the broadcast. Aaron Young from New Brunswick is a big listener. Last week we had someone from Estonia, Sweden every week, Bulgaria every week. Manitobans, of course, are big time supporters of the Heavy Hitter Podcast as well. And
do we still have our friends in Virginia?
We still do,
to us?
Every week.
Good.
They have not missed a week. 10 weeks. So yes, big shout out to you in Virginia. And here on the Heavy Hitter Podcast, we like to hit some heavy hitting topics and have some big time guests. And Jeff, I don't know if this is as big as it gets, but boy, oh boy, our guest today, this is huge.
I thought we were big when we had Jack Michaels, the voice of the Edmonton Oilers, a couple of weeks ago, but we may have hit an even bigger level this week when it comes to a multi-time Canadian men's curling champion, a world champion. On top of that, none other than Glenn Howard himself joining us on the program in a few minutes' time.
You know, we had the interview and we chatted after the fact, and we just sort of sat back and were in awe for a minute because he was so receptive. I mean, you're going to hear it in a few minutes here on the Heavy Hitter Podcast, but just an unbelievable conversation, and what an incredible story Glenn Howard has, and he's certainly shared it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. And can we tease this a little bit? If we think Glenn Howard's big when it comes to curling, wait in a couple weeks' time. We've got one even bigger that we're working on right now for a future. So keep listening. In the weeks ahead, we've got an even bigger curling guest set to join us here on the Heavy Hitter Podcast.
We're thinking bigger every single week. Wednesdays, we hit the air. Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, of course, on our website. This is the Heavy Hitter Podcast. We're starting things off today. I mentioned the Winnipeg Jets were bounced by the Colorado Avalanche in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. A major disappointment after what was thought to be a championship caliber team. Ultimately, they were not, and now a man who's been in the NHL for 38 years, more than 2,700 games, has announced his retirement as Rick Bowness is no longer coaching in the National Hockey League. First of all, kudos to Bones, but I think now was the right time to move on in your life.
Well, I'm not really surprised by this. I mean, Rick has had some health issues over the last couple of years. His wife, Judy, is just recovering from some health issues this past season alone. So I'm sure in Rick's mind, it's time to be at home with family and spend time away from the arena with his wife and his family. So good on Rick for seeing that and making that decision. And good on him for just an outstanding career player, coach. He did almost all in the National Hockey League. And congratulations to Rick Bowness on that. Now, the question, though, for Jets fans is who's next as far as the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets are concerned. More than likely, I would think they'll probably just look a little further down the bench to Scott Arniel to take over as the new head coach. He did fill in for
I do not
Rick.
think that is a good idea.
No?
I do not think Scott Arniel should be the next coach of the Jets. I know he has ties for 45 years with this program, as you mentioned, just down the bench with Rick Bowness. But I think there are some big free agents that have a lot more pedigree and perhaps championship DNA than Scott Arniel does. I think Arniel would continue to be a good assistant coach, but I think Winnipeg needs a shakeup more than anything. And to just promote their assistant coach into the head coaching, I don't think you're going to get the shakeup that is needed to get over that hump of making a deeper playoff run. So sure, Scott Arniel, a great coach, but I don't think he is the guy for the head coaching spot in Winnipeg.
I'm going to throw 4 letters at you as far as the nickname for a guy that I would like to see behind the bench of the Winnipeg Jets. Turk. Turk being the nickname for Gerard Gallant.
I'm shocked Gerard Gallant is not a coach in the National Hockey League right now. I mean, you look at his career in 2022 and 23 with the Rangers, 99, 46, and 19. You go back to Vegas, 51, 24, and 1. Lost in the Cup final, back to 2015 to 17 with Florida. 96, 65, and 25. With that being said, though, that playoff success has not been there. I know they advanced to the Stanley Cup final, but they lost. He was a postseason record with the Rangers, 13 and 14, 2 and 4 with Vegas, or with Florida, I should say. So Gerard has had a ton of success in the regular season. Just the question that hinders this organization is, who is the guy that is going to lead us to success when it comes to the playoffs? And I don't know. Based on his past, is Gerard Gallant the right guy?
That is a good point to make. That is a good point. This has been a good regular season team that just doesn't seem to get over the hump in the playoffs. So maybe Gallant is not the choice. There is a guy out there, though, that is a Stanley Cup champion.
Love him.
From not that long ago, who is already rumored to be in the mix with a number of other teams. And maybe the Winnipeg Jets can now be thrown into the mix as a possible new home for Craig Berube.
You look back at his career, you want to talk about bringing a championship guy in. Craig Berube won a Stanley Cup with the St. Louis Blues. I mean, you go back to the 2019 calendar year, St. Louis 15, 18, and 4. Then they went 30, 10, and 5. They had a franchise best 11-game winning streak. Berube, as mentioned, they won the Stanley Cup that year. They beat the Bruins in Game 7. He became the second interim coach in the history of the National Hockey League to lead his team to a Stanley Cup. He joins Larry Robinson. He was then fired in December 12th of 2023. I do agree Berube would be a solid pickup for the Jets, but I look to another guy who was fired by the Edmonton Oilers earlier this season in Jay Woodcroft. And you're looking at me and sort of shaking your head, Jeff, and thinking, why in the world would Jay Woodcroft be a guy who the Jets should look at? I'm going to tell you why and give you some numbers. He has the highest regular season winning percentage of any Edmonton Oilers coach in the history. He won a cup in 2008 as video coach of the Detroit Red Wings. In April of 2018, he became the head coach in the American Hockey League of Bakersfield. They went 105, 71, and 21. They won a Pacific Division playoff championship, and the prior year, they won the Pacific Division regular season. You talk about bringing in a guy who wins. Yes, he was fired this past year, but Woodcroft is already a Stanley Cup champion, given as a video coach, but still important.
I guess that is an option. I just... For me personally, I like either Gallant or Berube as a choice over Woodcroft as head coach for the Winnipeg Jets. Now there is one guy that was out there, potentially out there as of a couple of weeks ago. He's now since been relocked up by the Carolina Hurricanes. But boy, can you imagine if the Hurricanes had not given Rod Brind'Amour a new head coach?
Seattle was going after him rumored to go after him pretty heavily as well.
If I was Mark Chipman, I would have opened up the checkbook and say, Rod, you write down the amount that you want. But of course, again, that's now a moot point because he has re-signed a new contract with the Carolina Hurricanes. But that was a huge topic of like, what is going on if the Hurricanes don't keep Brind'Amour around?
So you mentioned Gallant, you mentioned Berube. I mentioned Berube I really like. I don't hate Gallant either. And I mentioned Jay Woodcroft. If you had a pick of those three, and maybe even two, because you don't think Jay would be in the right spot to be the head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, but if you had a pick between Gerard as well as Berube, who are you taking to lead this team moving forward?
Boy, I was thinking Gallant for the longest time until you brought up the whole playoff history for him. And, you know, considering this franchise has struggled in the playoffs, I don't know how much Gallant is a good choice anymore. I'd probably go Berube as a choice for the new head coach for the Winnipeg Jets. I at least hope they're going to open this up and not just automatically hand it right over to Scott Arniel. I hope they are at least going to open this up and consider other options outside of the Jets program right now.
I 100% agree. And my third pick would be Gallant. I'm taking Woodcroft as number 2 and Berube as number 1. Certainly enticing and something to look forward to if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan. In the Stanley Cup playoffs right now, I think one of the most intriguing series. I'm loving the Western Conference series. You got the Colorado Avalanche against the Dallas Stars. And then my series that I'm most interested in, and perhaps a little biased, but the Edmonton Oilers against the Vancouver Canucks. This is cool, Jeff, because you're guaranteeing a Canadian team will be 8 wins away from a Stanley Cup title after this series is over.
Yeah, exactly. I think the last time that happened was the Oilers a couple of years ago when they made the Western Conference Final, only to lose out to the Colorado Avalanche in that situation. But it would be it's going to be great to see one Canadian club at least in the conference final round. Unfortunately for me, being an early riser for work, I'm probably not going to be able to stay up to watch a whole bunch of these games, seeing as they'll be starting for the most part in that 8:30 to 9:30 Manitoba range over the next couple of weeks here. But it will be a dandy series to watch. The question is, who's going to be in goal for the Vancouver Canucks in that series against the Edmonton Oilers, and how will they contain the two-headed monster that's Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl?
Thatcher Demko has been confirmed out for game number 1. They had DeSmith, who played well, but then he had an injury. Seeloffs went in, and then DeSmith had an opportunity to return between the pipes. They went Seeloff. So I would think the Canucks would, and he was very good against Nashville. But you mentioned that two-headed horn in the Edmonton Oilers offensive, especially on the power play, 45% on the man advantage. I know the Canucks were 90% on the penalty kill, but Vancouver's going up against a very different offensive beast in Edmonton.
And everyone was talking, the Canucks went 4-0 against the Oilers in the regular season. The Canucks will roll through this. Hey, need to remind you, what did the Jets do against Colorado during the regular season?
Did they not just embarrass them 7-0 a couple of weeks before the season ended?
And how did that playoff series turn out?
Oh, man.
Next question, please.
I'm taking Oilers. Seems like you're taking the Oilers as well. Dallas and Colorado. I think this is going to be a very intriguing series. We know how good Colorado is offensively. Makar, McKinnon, Nichushkin had a fantastic series, but Jake Ottinger, outstanding, especially when it comes to Game 7s. He is just incredible. Wyatt Johnston have a fantastic run with the Stars as well. I think this is going to be a pick'em series. Perhaps goes down to the distance. I mean, Dallas has home ice advantage if it comes down to Game 7, but this is going to be one heck of a series to watch.
It'll be a great series, but, I originally picked Dallas to win this series, but I'm starting to think Colorado's just on a roll right now. Look at what Colorado did to the suspected Vezina Trophy winner this year in Connor Hellebuck, and now going up against Jake Ottinger. Yeah, Ottinger plays well in Game 7s and such like that, but you got to get it to the Game 7 for him to be able to show some of that magic like that. And I just think this Avalanche offense is rolling too good right now. I'm picking Colorado probably in 6 to win that series.
Okay. I'm taking Dallas in 7. Yeah, okay. I'm going to take Dallas in 7. It kind of hurts me because I think Dallas will win, or I think Colorado will win, should say, but I'm going to take Dallas in 7 games. Now, would it be safe to say we should maybe hold off on the Eastern Conference series because they're going to be playing before we even air this, or should we take a break and then come back with Glenn Howard? What are you thinking?
Oh, let's quickly do the East.
Florida, Boston.
I still think Florida's going to win that series. I'm picking
5 unanswered goals though for Boston. That's a little bit of a shock, no?
It's a little bit of a shock. I think a lot of that is momentum from the Game 7 win on Saturday night. I think some of that too. Florida not having played in a week is going to certainly hurt the Panthers there. I think they turn around. I think they win this series in 6 games before all is said and done. The Carolina Rangers series.
That's a good one.
That's going to be good. But it's going to go the distance, and I'll pick the Rangers in 7 in that one.
Shesterkin gets the nod over Anderson. 4-3 in Game 1. I have been saying for quite some time, Carolina will play Edmonton in the Stanley Cup Finals. So I'm going with the Hurricanes in this series against the Rangers. I also think it will go the distance. I think this is going to be an outstanding series, perhaps one of the better ones, but not as good as Vancouver and Edmonton's going to be, not as good as Dallas and Colorado is going to be. Maybe is it a better series as far as entertainment wise than Florida and Boston? Meh. Close. I don't know. Not. They're not super appealing. That's why we're Western Conference fans.
That might be the sleeper of the first 4 or second round series. Florida, Boston.
Isn't that unfortunate that all the games are at 6? So you could technically. Wouldn't it be cool if the games were at like 9 and you could actually go to sleep
and not have to watch that one?
Oh, it's NHL playoff time. Winnipeg Jets, who will be their next head coach? Certainly something to look forward to. We're looking forward to unveiling our chat with one of the best ever when it comes to the pebbled ice. Glenn Howard coming up in a moment. And of course, we're chatting Centennial Cup. This is episode 11 of the Heavy Hitter Podcast.
Duffy and Henning are coming back with a bang any moment now. Get ready for another round of intense action. Don't miss a beat. Head over to the Heavy Hitters Podcast on Facebook and hit that subscribe button to stay in the loop 24/7.
Welcome back to the Heavy Hitter Podcast. This is episode 11. Now pleased to be joined, and very pleased to be joined by a 14 career Grand Slam champion, a world champion, a Canadian champion, one of the best to ever play the sport in Glenn Howard. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time. Really do appreciate you once again joining the Heavy Hitter Podcast. Tons to chat about over the next 20 to 25 minutes. First of all, though, Glenn, let's go back to the start. I understand you picked up the game of curling in that age range of 10. Did it come pretty naturally to you, or how did you get into the game?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Basically, I followed my brother's footsteps, Russ. He's 6.5 years older than me, and both my parents were avid sports fans and very athletic, into all kinds of sports. And my dad more so my dad got Russ and I into curling. He loved golf, loved curling were his passions. And then he got Russ into it at an early age. And then obviously following in his footsteps, back then we didn't have little rocks. You had the big rocks. So, it took you till about 10 years old before you could actually get them down to the other end. And that's when I started. And so Russ would have been 16-ish, somewhere in that neighborhood, and been curling for a bit. And then I jumped on board and kind of followed him. And I guess the old saying goes, the rest is history.
How big of an influence or mentor was Russ for you with regards to your career, Glenn?
Oh, massive. Again, he was a perfectionist, absolutely loved sports. He was pretty much everything he picked up, he usually did very well at. And very passionate, and just when he puts his mind to it, he put everything 150% into it. And I just watching him curl as a little youngster, and I thought this is kind of cool. And he played hockey, I played hockey. He played a little bit of baseball, I played baseball. It was kind of one of those tons. We both played tons of golf, and I think part of it, that was a big part of it. I think if I didn't have a big brother, it might not have materialized the way it did. And so he was massive to watch him go, and then. He started to do very well, and then as the more he did well and moved on in the sport, I felt like I wanted to follow in his footsteps.
Now, Glenn, playing with your older brother, Russ, how did you perhaps differentiate being brothers, but also being elite competitors? You obviously have your jokes, you have your fun, but at the end of the day, it was about getting down to business and winning titles, which you two certainly had success together over the years. But how did you perhaps differentiate those two?
Well, it's interesting because like I said in the beginning, following in his footsteps, and then when he got to his first national championship in 1980, won the provincials. I remember down there watching, and I went out to watch him. He was in Calgary, and I watched. I was like 16, 17 at the time, and I thought, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I've got to be part of this at some point. I just love it so much. So then we joined forces. I think it'll be about 1983. I'm just out of juniors. I played my junior curling, and then get out of that and just get into the men's. And then my whole dream. The only thing I wanted to do was to play with Big Brother and try and get to a Brier. That was my entire dream. And lo and behold, 2-3 years later, we did it. And and I think as brothers, it's interesting. We got along pretty well. We had our moments, of course, like any other siblings. But I always felt as brothers we had a bit of an advantage because we really knew each other very well. He knew, how to put what buttons to push for me and vice versa. I knew what to say and what not to say to him. And I actually think it was an advantage playing with him over those years because we knew each other so well. But again, you have your moments, but on the same token, it was real. It was genuine. You didn't treat each other with kid gloves, where sometimes you might with a different teammate. So it worked out really well for us. And like I said, we won two world championships together, and it was amazing.
Glenn, of course, you just mentioned the great success that you and Russ had together as a team. Then, of course, later on in your career, you get the chance to curl with your son Scott as well, too. Was there at any point, even if it was just for a recreational fun type bonspiel, that the three of you ever got a chance to curl together on the same rink? And if not, is that something you wish maybe you would have had a chance to do?
Well, ironically enough, no, we haven't done that, to answer the question. And, Russ's son, Steven, he's going to be 40 at the end of this year. And he's an avid curler. He played with Russ at the Brier. I played against him. So Stevie and Russ were playing together out of New Brunswick, and I was representing Ontario back in, I think it was 2009, and we played against each other. I wasn't playing with my son, or my son wasn't playing with me at that time, but we have talked about the four of us getting together at some point just to, slap the shoes on and go and play in a bonspiel, and we just haven't, it just hasn't materialized. And I think a lot of it was just too busy, too much going on with my team and coaching and stuff like that. We just couldn't find another weekend, and the boys are working as well. And I think maybe now that I've retired, maybe there's a chance, depending on my knee, as to how that happens. But we might look at something. I think that would be super cool to have the four Howards play together. But to this point, we haven't done it.
He's one of the best to ever do it. He's a Canadian champion, a world champion, a Grand Slam champion. Pleased to be joined on the Heavy Hitter podcast today by Glenn Howard. And Glenn, you mentioned growing up, it was always your dream to play with your big brother, Russ, at the Brier. You guys had a ton of success. And I look back to 1987. I'm not sure if you call it the year of 5 enders, but I think it's pretty cool that you scored a 5 in the 10th end to beat BC 11-7 in the Brier. And then in the World Championships, you scored another 5-point end to win that title. Was it a dream come true to not only to get the chance to play with Russ at a Brier and a World Championship, but to score those 5 enders and win a title with your brother? Can you take us back to that and perhaps how that felt for the family?
Yeah, great point. It was unbelievable feeling, and I'll go back 1 year prior to that. So 1986 was the Brier for me. Been Russ's second, and we won the provincials, and now I've dream come true. It's 1986. I'm 23 years old. I'm now going to the Brier. My dreams come true. I'm content. And lo and behold, we go to the Brier and lose the final by like inches, and that's all of a sudden my goals changed. I go, oh my God, we just came so close to winning the national championship. I think we can do this. I really, all of a sudden you believe in yourself. You think that we can get this done, and for some miraculous reason, we were able to pull it off in next year. Everything, all the stars aligned. Everything happened perfectly. We get to the Brier final, one down with Hammer coming home against Bernie Sparks. And, back in those days, you throw up a there's no free guard zone. You throw a rock, they peel it off. They throw a rock, peel a rock. And if it goes the way it should, we were going to get forced to one in the 10th end, and Bernie'd have last rock in the extra. And lo and behold, we got some misses. We had threw up some guards. They missed, flashed, whatever. And we kept coming around. They kept chasing and missing, and we kept coming around, and end up being Russ had a hit to get 5. And to win, and lo and behold, he did. And I've got a picture of myself back in the day. I'm 4 feet off the ice, jumping in the air. Dream come true. The family's going nuts. So exciting. Just another goal. All of a sudden, I've reached so many goals. It's so fast. And then you go off to the Worlds, and the exact same thing happens. We get ourselves into a playoff. We get into the final game against Germany, and we're one down coming home with Hammer. Same rules. And they missed a bunch of shots, and Russ has a hit to live 5, and he makes it, and we get another 5-ender to win the World Championship. And it was like, what just happened? Pinch me, right? It's just, and then move a little bit further is now you get a taste of it. You just want more. It's so much fun to play. It's so gratifying. It's so cool, to play at that level, and then to win and become a Canadian or world champion. You think, I just want to keep doing this because it's so much fun. And obviously it doesn't happen every year, but fortunately I was able to do it a little bit further on.
So, Glenn, then we move forward to 2000, and you talk about goals. I'm sure a goal of yours moving into that year was to skip your own team, and then even further to that, 7 years later, you won your first Brier as a skip, and you beat Brad Gushue, who just the year prior, in 2006, won Olympic gold medal. So perhaps two quick questions. How was it going into a full-time skip in 2000, and then also moving forward to 2007, winning a Brier as a skip, and more importantly, perhaps beating Brad Gushue, who to this day is still one of the best ever?
Oh, it's for sure. So the interesting fact is had Russ not moved away, I firmly believe that I would have been playing third for him for the rest of my life. I had no intentions of skipping. It never crossed my mind. I loved the third position. I thought I was good at it. It worked out well. Things were great. No dreams to move forward. It was basically by default when Russ moved away to Moncton for a job opportunity. You can't play together. You got to represent your own province. And it was shortly after that my good friend Rich Hart, who I'd played against for years, he contacted me. I dabbled for a couple of years, just playing third for other people. And then Richie calls and says, hey, Glenn, he says, we've talked heads for years. What do you think about skipping? I go, I don't know. He says, I think you'd be a great skip. I said, well, I never even considered it. I said, I guess if I have a really good third, I'd think about it. And he goes, well, I'll play third. And so it honestly, God, that's how it happened. He says, I believe in you. We picked up a couple more guys. We did remarkably well in the beginning. I struggled a bit. It took me a while to get to learn the position. to skip, and it took a while. We qualified a lot, never won, and then finally it all kind of came together. We ended up picking up Brent Lang and Craig Saville, and we went to the Brier in 2006 and lost the final. And then 2007, we get back, and we turned into be one of the best teams in the country, and played an amazing final against Brad Gushu. He made one bad shot, and I think it was the sixth end, and gave us a two steal, and then we were able to pull it off, and then won the Worlds. And like you said, Brad Gushu is arguably the best curler that's ever played, and he's still showing that he's just getting better by the minute. So pretty cool to beat him, but just to win again, like winning is fun, and to win a national championship, and then we went on to win the World Championship in 2007 as well. It's just so cool, and it's just so much fun.
Fast forward a couple of years from that, Glenn, 2009 Brier, I believe, in Calgary, and just simply put, the shot that I think a lot of people still remember you for against Saskatchewan, the ricochet double to score 3 in the 10th end to beat Saskatchewan 7-6 that night. Have you made a better shot than that maybe none of us have seen, like a shot maybe in another competition that was never shown on TV or anything? And how much do you still get asked about that shot as well, too?
It's hard to say about, there's so many phenomenal shots made over the years by other people as well, and I've made a few good ones. And it's one of those ones where you can only hit a rock in a certain spot. You can't, you have to hit it in a certain spot and hope things happen. And I remember the game well. We didn't play that great. We were 2-0 coming home against Joel Georgeson from Saskatchewan. He guarded the shot that we thought we might have had for a 2 to tie the game. And I remember saying to Richie, there's got to be something here. There's got to be something. And both of us at the same time said, well, what if we hit our own rock there and stick the shooter, and this rock goes over there, and maybe it comes around the horn? We weren't even sure the shot was there, but we knew that was the only shot we had to get maybe 2 or 3. I didn't know. And when I let it go, we just knew that the shooter had to stick to the one on the 4-foot, and the other rock was over the other side, and hopefully good things happen. And lo and behold, the angles were perfect. And when the rock went shooting out of the back of the rings and we got 3, I was stunned, and we were all sort of stunned. And they say, "Oh my God, this is cool!" And just the fact that we pulled it off. It was a team shot, swept it perfectly. Richie called it perfectly, and it was really cool. And I think a lot of it's there's been way harder shots made, but I think it's more circumstance. You're 2 down coming home, you make a shot for 3, and it was a pretty cool shot. That's what makes it really more special. So yeah, I think about that, and I get asked a lot about it, which is pretty fun. And I guess more importantly, it's just kind of cool when it comes off.
And Glenn, you capped off your final title sweep in 2012 when you beat Kevin Cooley in Canada, and then you beat Tom Brewster of Scotland in the World Championships. At that point in your career, not saying it was the twilight of your career or anything like that, but at that point, with all the success you have garnered in the past, how was it? What was the feeling like to win yet again in what you've done pretty much your entire career?
Well, again, super cool. Again, I cannot emphasize enough how much fun winning is, and really cool. Unfortunately, Rich Hart packed it in, and we had to fill the 3rd spot. And my good buddy Wayne Madaw jumped in the role, and he had never played 3rd before. He and I had we'd won a World Championship together with Pete Corner and my brother Russ in '93. I've knocked heads with Wayner over the years after that. One of the best curlers that ever lived. And we played Tuesday nights together with our wives for the last 25 years. And he joined back up, and he made everything all year. He was unbelievable. We went right through a world final, and then pulled it off. It was so cool to be able to do it with him and with Brent and Craig. And my son, so Scott was our 5th. So we brought him along, and he threw some rocks for us along the way, which was cool. I think the one, probably to be honest with you, the most proud thing for me in my whole career has been my longevity. I've been able to win. I've been to won a Brier and a Worlds in 4 different decades. And first of all, I have to thank all the amazing curlers that I've had to play with me. You can't do it as an individual; you do it as a team. I've been blessed with some of the greatest curlers to ever play with me. But I find it really cool that I've been able to still play well at a high level over that amount of time. And that was what kind of capped off 2012. It was another decade, and here I am playing with some amazing players, and we pulled it off. And that's what I'm really the most proud of, is the longevity in the game, and that we've kind of been able to sustain my decent play, and again, blessed with the best curlers ever.
That would have been a pretty impressive mixed team there, Glenn. I mean, I've never seen your wife curl before, but I mean, you and Wayne are both obviously accomplished, and Wayne's wife Sherry was not bad at curling herself as well too.
Well, we have a blast. I think Judy, my wife Judy, is the best curler of the four of us. So she always plays lead, and she just puts them in play all the time. Curls one night a week, makes everything, and it's a great outlet for us. We just go out and have a good time, play, throw the rocks up and down in the major league, have a couple of pops afterward, and then enjoy the camaraderie. And it's a night out with our wives and have a good time. And it is a pretty darn good mixed team to answer your question.
And Glenn, maybe how important is it to have that fun? When it comes down to it, it's all about winning and winning championships when it comes to the Brier and any other spiel you have. But when you can just join together with your wife and perhaps some other friends and maybe even at the national tournament, just to take everything into perspective, trying to win, but also trying to, have a lot of fun with it.
Well, it's funny. I'm really glad you said that. That's been my sort of mantra my entire curling career is fun, and it's cliche, and I know people are going to say, oh yeah, whatever, but I'm telling you, if this game wasn't fun, every time I lace up the shoes, I'm not going to play. And that's part of the reason why I'm retiring, is because it's not as much fun because I hurt so much. My knee's so sore, everything's going on that I don't enjoy it as much, and that's the big part of it. Hey, listen, I want to win as much as the next guy, but I want to enjoy it. And if I'm hurting too much, it's not as much fun. And that's what I played. I sacrificed my family and sacrificed so much for me to curl that it better damn well be fun. And it really is. And I worry about that a little bit in today's game. It's becoming so much of a business. It's become so much of a, I don't know how to put it. I see teams out there that I don't think are having as much fun. It's becoming too work-like, too business-like, too methodical, too whatever. The product is amazing. I'm sorry I digress here, but the product is amazing, but I'm worried about the fun aspect. And my son and both my kids love to curl. They said, both of my Carly and Scott said to me, Dad, if it's not fun, I'm not going to curl. And I said, guys, that's the way it's got to be. If you don't enjoy this, don't bother. So, and that's what Judy and Wayne and Sherry and I do Tuesday nights. We can go back to, we don't have to win. It's not that big a deal. We can tone it down a bit. We just go out and throw the rocks, have fun, and enjoy ourselves. And again, having fun is the number one thing for me.
So you've retired from competitive curling now, Glenn, but now obviously moving on to the coaching side. You've been doing that for quite a few years, both on the men's side and on the women's side as well, too, for coaching. What's that transition been like?
It's something I loved. It kind of came out of nowhere. 2016, Eve Muirhead from Scotland called me and says, we got along really well. And she says, hey, what are the chances of coaching? And I go, I've never really done it. I'd love to. I think I'd be pretty good at it. I don't know. I'll give it a shot, other than I'm still curling, and I still want to, curl competitively. And they were completely okay with it. And I coached them for 3 years. We went to the Pyeongchang Olympics, went to a couple of World Championships. Super cool. Then I realized I really loved it. And then take a year off or so, and then Jen Jones, again, without a doubt, the GOAT, the greatest female curler to live, as far as Mike, she calls me up and says, Glenn, do you want to coach me and my team? I go, absolutely. So I was blessed with coaching them for the last 2 years. Obviously, with the three young girls and Lauren, Carly, and Emily. And we had 2 amazing years. Unfortunately, we lost the Scotty final in the last 2 years, which kind of sucks, but what a blast. It's so fun to be able to coach those girls. And then, as you know, Jen's packed it in. She's got to the point where it's time to quit. And what coaching holds for me in the future, I don't know. I'm actually going to sit down with the 3 girls and their new skip, Chelsea Carey, in the next coming weeks to see if maybe we can figure something out. I hope that'll happen, and if not, so be it, and I'll look elsewhere, and I'm also going to maybe coach my son and my daughter in the meantime. So I want to keep my hand in the game. I just love it so much, and I did, again, back to fun. I really found coaching fun, so that could fill the void nicely.
Now, Glenn, we're using the word fun a lot, and I like it. This is fun because it's not every day that you get the chance to chat with one of the greatest curlers of all time. And once again, we really do appreciate you joining the Heavy Hitter podcast. But going back to that word fun, how fun has it been coaching or playing with your son for the past 8 years?
Well, again, and I don't want to belabor or use the word too much, but I will because it's a ton of fun. It's interesting. So one of the hardest days of my life was 8 years ago when I called up Craig Salvo, who's a really dear friend of mine, and won world championships together. And I said, Craig, I'm at the time of my career. I'm getting near the end. I want to curl the rest of my career with my son. And the obvious choice at the time was for Scott to play lead on my existing team. And Craig, I had to part ways, and that was so hard. But he was a consummate professional, and he understood. And we're obviously still friends today, and everything's fine. But so then Scotty joined, and I thought, I'll get a couple of years in. Hopefully, I'll make a few shots and keep the fun aspect. It's going to be great to play with my son. Well, that was 8 years ago, and we've had a blast. And he's moved up. He's moved up from lead, and a couple of years ago, he joined me at third. So he's in the house with me. Do we get along all the time? No, but we have our moments. But again, he knows me well enough. I know him well enough. We can say what we need to say. We've had a blast together. We've played in the Brier together. We won Bonspiels together in the big leagues. Not. I always say we're not playing for Toasters on Monday night. We're actually playing with the big boys, and we did really well. And it was more rewarding and satisfying for me and it's still super fun just to hold the broom for my son to slide out at me and vice versa. And it was just so cool. And I will miss that dearly. It's just, not many people can say they've had the opportunity to play with a son or a daughter at the highest level in the sport they love. And, you think of somebody like Gordie Howe, if he played with his two sons, that's the first one that pops into my head. And it's just so gratifying and so rewarding that I just can't say enough about it.
Glenn, you mentioned getting to coach Jennifer Jones for the last couple of years, and of course with Jen retiring after this season. How special, how emotional was that over the last couple of months here, going to the Scotties, going to the last Players' Championships, knowing that this was the end of the line for Jennifer, and just to see how the outpouring of love and respect that she got in those last couple of events of her team curling career?
The word I'm going to use is unbelievable, and it's so deserving. I knew it would be kind of crazy, but I didn't think it'd be as crazy as it really was. The outpouring of admiration for Jen was so genuine and so predominant. It was from media, from fans, from television, from all walks of life. The outpouring was incredible, and again, so deserving. I still think Jennifer Jones is the greatest female curler to ever live to this point. And for her to get the accolades she did was well deserved. It was incredible. I don't know how, to be honest with you, I don't know how she did as well as she did in the Scotties, because it was 24/7 that people were calling her and doing interviews and stop, and she went way above and beyond to accommodate, as she always does, but way more so this year. She would stay 40 minutes after the draw, whatever night we'd play, and to sign autographs, to take pictures, to do interviews. She had to be exhausted through it all. Never once complained. Just said, this is my fans and my peeps deserve me to give that attention, and she did that. And it was unbelievable. It was very emotional for everybody, and she handled it very well. I thought it was amazing, and again, very well deserved.
Glenn, and I know your body was telling you with your knee that it was time to pack it in. But still, that must have been a tough decision, because as a competitor as you are, I imagine that you thought you would play this game for a long time.
Oh, it's so true. It's the old phrase, bittersweet. Again, the knee was so sore, and this year it was really tough. It had moments where it got really good, and I played really good, and I'm thinking, I'm back, and here we're laughing. I can't wait, and and it's like a kid in a candy store. You're rejuvenated. You're having fun. You're doing everything, and then it got really sore in early December. Thought a few months off, or 6 to 8 weeks off, would be good before provincials. Well, no way. It was just way too sore. Didn't enjoy it, and then it's kind of weird how it happened. It happened in a Bonspiel in Penticton when I played 4 games and had to pull myself out. And then the boys went on with just 3. Scott jumped into the skipping position. Davey went into third, and Tim was still playing at lead. And they rhyme off 5 straight wins to win the Bonspiel. And I'm going, oh my God, this is incredible. And then it really hit me that, my son's ready for that move. I think he's ready to skip. I think he wants to skip. And that kind of helped me along to make my decision. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to hold him back. This makes no sense. Who knows where my knee's going to be. If my knee was going to be better, I'd still consider playing. But I could come to this coming September, and all of a sudden, boys, I can't curl. You're out. You're going to leave you hanging. Like, that's just not fair to them. And that kind of what happened at the beginning of this year. And unbeknownst to me, I didn't know it was going to be a problem. And I just thought, you know what? It's been a chronic problem for years. Let's just. It's time. And that just I'm at peace with it. Totally okay with it. I'm kind of glad I made the decision. Then I wanted to wait till the end of the curling season. I didn't want to be any distraction at all. I wanted to make sure that Scott and the team got through the rest of their year, and then go from there. And then so made the announcement, and I'm totally at peace with it. But back to your point, very, very difficult. My mind says I can play. I want to play. I'm competitive. I want to win. I want to have fun. But the knee's telling me otherwise. So you got to listen to your body. And I am getting older, unfortunately.
So, Glenn, just one final question, though. How proud of a moment was it for you to see your son and realize that you thought he was ready for the moment to be a skip? You know, it goes full circle. You were a third, then you move up to play skip at 2000, and now to see your son taking over full-time as a skip. That must have been a really proud moment for you.
Incredible. It was when I watched them, when they watched the boys, the three of them were just, they rose to the occasion. It's one of those ones where, you know, you lose a star player in a hockey team, and the team plays better without him. You see that happen lots, and albeit the Maple Leafs last night. But you know, I watched, and he just owned the position. They beat, well, arguably five of the best teams in the world when they won, and then he goes and wins provincials. Like, it was like he was so comfortable and so relaxed, and so I could just see he owned the position. That was very proud. Like you said, a very proud moment to see that he was handling the pressure, handling the situation. Had to draw to the forefoot to win the provincials. No problem, made it. You could just see he owned it. I kept using that phrase, he owned it. And that was so awesome as a parent to see him do that. And he was loving it, having so much fun. And Tim and Dave, same thing. They just brought their game to the next level. And I was proud of all three of them. And they won the provincials with three players. It was incredible. Then ultimately, we get to the Brier. Now my son has a chance to skip in his first Brier. He played remarkably. He had the shot of the week in the very first game, which we're just bouncing around like kids in a candy store, jumping around, having fun, watching him do that. And I sit back, I put my coaching cap on. I just thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. And to your point, it was a very, very proud moment for me.
I got to go back to a word we've used so much. This has been fun. One of the greatest curlers of all time, Glenn Howard, a world champion, a Canadian champion, a Grand Slam champion. Glenn, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the Heavy Hitter podcast. This has been absolutely incredible. You're a great man with an absolutely incredible journey. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time. Congratulations on all you have accomplished, and enjoy the golf course this summer. And I'm sure we'll see you around the rink come the fall.
Well, again, thank you very much for having me. It means a lot, just to tell my story and to tell you what's going on with my life and my family. And again, I really, really appreciate having me on. Thanks again, and you too have a phenomenal summer.
Get ready, folks. The Heavy Hitters podcast is about to bring the heat as Duffy and Henny return in just a moment. But here's the kicker. You can be part of the action too. Want your voice heard on the show? Shoot the boys a message on their Heavy Hitters Facebook page with your burning question, and they'll give you a big shout out next week when they answer it. But for now, buckle up for more heavy hitting action with Duffy and Henny.
Episode number 11. Welcome back, folks. This is the Heavy Hitter podcast. And Jeff, that was cool. Glenn Howard, one of the best to ever. We set out with a vision when we did this podcast to just, come to Forces every week and chat sports, whether it's hockey, baseball, football, and, down the line, maybe once we were, 30 episodes in, maybe try and get some big guests. We've had Jack Michaels, we've had Nolan Cole, we've had Reese Gaber, and now we just had one of the greatest curlers of all time. I just love it.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And again, we kind of teased earlier, we've got an even bigger guest coming down the horizon. Think curling, think broadcasting, and I'll leave it at that. I'm pretty sure I probably just gave it away to some people, but
You probably gave it away to the big curling fans, but with that being said, I think the big curling fans are just going to be more excited than ever to tune into the weekly Heavy Hitter podcast this week and next week, leading up to the national final next Sunday, which will be aired on TSN. If you're a junior hockey fan, a lot of the spotlight will be in Oakville, where the 2024 Hockey Canada Centennial Cup, which is the Junior A National Championship, will take part. You got 10 teams from coast to coast. You got a couple of... You're smirking at me already.
Because we talked about this earlier today. You didn't mention it there, but the Centennial Cup now presented by Tim Hortons. I want to see them present the Timbit Cup.
Just imagine like a cup, just like a chocolate glazed cup that you just, I think I'm on board. If we become a marketing team, Jeff, I think we also thought of the Parkland Pickerel.
Yep.
We got some darn good ideas. So the Timbit Cup, the Centennial Cup, the Kings, Dauphin Kings played in this event a couple of years ago. Now, how many teams in this tournament are breathing a sigh of relief that they don't have to go through the Brooks Bandits and, more importantly, the Calgary Canucks? They probably would not be at that event if it weren't for 5 teams from Alberta moving off to the British Columbia Hockey League.
No, I don't think they would be. I'm pretty sure even if the 4 other teams outside of the Brooks Bandits left the Alberta Junior Hockey League for the BCHL, and if the Brooks Bandits stayed, I'm pretty sure the Brooks Bandits would still be representing the Alberta Junior Hockey League at the Centennial Cup if they were in that event. So teams would be breathing a big sigh of relief that they don't have to face them. Let's go back to November when the Brooks Bandits were the number 2 ranked team in the country and the Flin Flon Bombers were the number 1 ranked team in the country. And now neither of those teams are at the Centennial Cup this year.
Before we get to some of the teams that will be competing, and I'm kind of sad a little bit because, yes, I like to see new champions, but Brooks won 3 straight national titles. I kind of wanted to see how long. Like, would they just win every year? I don't know. We'll never know. But how would epic failure be okay to categorize the Flin Flon Bombers season? You spent 17 weeks as the number 1 team in Canada. You only lost 1 game going into the 2024 portion of your calendar year, yet you lose in the league final for the 3rd straight year to the Melfort Mustangs. Man, that's just unfortunate.
I don't know if we want to put epic failure or massive disappointment. Which one would be more of a better description or an easier description for Bomber fans to take right about now?
I still can't believe it. They finished the year with 44 wins. They struggled down the stretch going 4-5-0-1, but I'm still trying to come to terms with how does a team that's number 1 in Canada for so long have home ice advantage in the finals, go into the finals, lay a complete egg like my friend's chickens are laying right now. Like, actually, the duck outside of our building is laying right now. Because, yeah, if you haven't known, we have a duck outside of our building. And I actually saw the duck for the first time today. And then I saw its eggs because the duck sort of stomped it away. 8 eggs. Pretty cool. I'm getting completely off topic.
That's because one of the names that was suggested was Darnell Duck.
Darnell Duck. I have Daffy Duff, too. People like to make fun of my last name. I think it was because when I first came to CKDM, how I had my sign off, maybe it sounded a little bit like Duck, but now I'm just rolling with it. I want to try and be the coolest duck around. So whether it's...
And the future mayor of Duff, Saskatchewan.
I will never forget that, Jeff. Whatever I amount to in life, I hope to one day be the honorary mayor of Duff, Saskatchewan. That would be a highlight in my life.
We're working on it, folks. We're working on it.
And trust me, we're going to have video. We'll add video to the podcast when it becomes relevant. Something that is relevant is the Melfort Mustangs, who beat the Flin Flon Bombers in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. Now, a Saskatchewan-based team has not won the national championship for a decade, That was when the Yorkton Terriers beat the Carleton Place Canadians a decade ago. But you believe that the Mustangs could have a chance to break that curse.
I think, obviously, if you could knock off the top team in the country in the Flin Flon Bombers to get to the Centennial Cup, I think you've got to be considered one of the favorites of this event. They've got good scoring in the likes of Aiden Hutchinson and Ryan Duguay. Their defense seems to be pretty solid. They've been getting great goaltending throughout these playoffs. So I think the Mustangs comes the Sunday, that would be the 19th, I believe, is the final. I think the Mustangs will be in that final, and I think they're going to go up against Cumberland in that championship.
You mean Collingwood?
Collingwood, sorry, yes. Yeah. I get those confused all the time. But yeah, Collingwood, they've been among the top teams in Canada all year long, and I see this as a year with the event being in Ontario. You've got, I think, 4 of the 10 teams in the tournament are from Ontario itself. I think an Ontario team will be in the championship final. I'm taking Collingwood to be in the championship final to go up against the Melfort Mustangs for the rights to be the top team in Canadian Junior A hockey. I know folks in Winkler are probably a little disappointed to hear that after I've been pounding the drum for the Flyers all playoff long here. But I just don't think... I think the Flyers will get to the semifinals, but I think they'll end up coming up short as far as getting to the national championship.
Now, when we talk about the Collingwood Blues of the Ontario Junior Hockey League, I always think of Anthony Bax because Bax came over from Collingwood in a trade last year. Then Bax was traded to Flin Flon for a chance to go to the Centennial Cup, or the Timbit Cup as we're calling, which is not going to happen. But when you look at Collingwood this year, 49-6-0-1, 16-3 in the playoffs. Their goaltender, Noah Pack, he's already committed to play Division I at Yale. He was 37-5 in the regular season. Then you go forward to the playoffs, 174 goals against average, 8 guys with at least 50 points in the regular season. This is a team that is extremely, extremely deep with outstanding goaltending, as mentioned, in Noah Pack. You talked about the Winkler Flyers making the semifinal, and to just put this into perspective, how good players are in the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, Dalton Andrew, who won the MJHL scoring race, was not the MVP somehow. That's a story for another day. He is committed to the University of North Dakota, which is one of the premier NCAA Division I destinations in the entire globe. So it just goes to show, and Andrew's going to lead the Winkler Flyers into Oakville for the Centennial Cup. They were a runner-up back in 1992. They had the 4th most wins in franchise history this year, dating back to 1980. They have a Parkland kid in Jace the Ace Leegarden. I think this is a really well-rounded squad with some outstanding goaltending between the pipes in Malachi Clausen. So I am going Collingwood. I am going the Winkler Flyers. Let's get to Dark Horse Town, because these are some of the coolest stories. A team that maybe flies under the radar, but come Sunday, perhaps they're in the championship game.
And for mine, there's something about that CCHL. They always seem to come up big at the Centennial Cup tournament. You mentioned 2014 Carleton Place knocking off the Kings in the semifinal to get to the Centennial Cup final before they lost out to the Yorkton Terriers. So I'm taking the Nevin Grads from the CCHL, the CCHL champs this year, as my dark horse team for this year's Centennial Cup.
Now, they have an 18-year-old between the pipes. Check that. He is 18 years old. And in the playoffs, he was 12-4-1 with a .932 save percentage and a .241 goals against average. You need goaltending to win championships, especially when it comes down to the national championship. My dark horse is Collage Francois Delonghi. This is their 2nd year in 3 being to the national championship. They were at that event a couple of years ago in Estevan, and they had just a wild playoff run. They won their 9 final games of the regular season. In Game 6 and 7 of the championship series, they outscored their opponents 9-3. They 7-game win over Terrebonne in the final. Of course, Terrebonne represented Quebec at the championship last year. So I think Delonghi, they statistically always can find the back of the net. It's always been, can they get the goaltending that is needed to win a national title. But on a year where Magog won the U18 national title over the Brandon Wheat Kings, I think Longueuil is my dark horse to win a Centennial Cup. But this time of the year, Jeff, is always a sad time because officially the season is nearly over.
Yeah, it certainly is, and it's been a season that has certainly had its stories to it. Of course, we've already touched on a couple of them so far here in today's show. The 5 teams from the AJHL jumping ship and going to the BC Hockey League. You know, the utter dominance of the Flin Flon Bombers, only to be bounced in their league final by the Melfort Mustangs. There's you could go through every league, and there's been outstanding stories. How about the Sioux Lookout Bombers of the Superior International Junior Hockey League, led by a product from just down the road from us here in Dauphin, in Owen Riffle from Onlo, Manitoba, going up against, and maybe the best name in junior hockey right now, the Cam River Fighting Walleye.
No better name.
And beating them in the championship final. So, I mean, great stories all around, and looking forward to what's going to be a great week and a half of hockey. Folks out in Oakville, in that greater Toronto area, be sure to get out and watch some of this hockey, because it's going to be certainly worth the price of admission.
And just because I love hockey and junior hockey, I want to quickly touch on it. The thrills of the major junior scope. You have the OHL final going on right now. The QMJHL final will start up this weekend. In the Western Hockey League, Game 7 was needed between between Moose Jaw and Saskatoon, and in front of more than 6,000 fans in Prince George, the Portland Winterhawks advanced to the WHL final. So hockey is in good hands, and if you're a fan of junior hockey, what a time it is to be alive.
Tough way for the season to end for the Prince George Cougars, by far their best year in decades, and to have it end in the Western Conference final. I know there's already been some Prince George Cougar fans that are going on to X and asking NHL teams to send them guys back, the likes of Zemer and Height and guys like that, hoping they can get one more year out of those guys in Prince George and take one more run at a Western Hockey League championship next year.
Well, they do have a stud goalie by the name of Joshua Ravensbergen, who was outstanding in game number 6. But for the Prince George Cougars, heartbreak in double overtime. Jeff, another fun show, lots to chat about. And Glenn Howard, I think that's a good time to wrap up episode number 11. We'll be back for our 12th episode next week, and I'm sure looking forward to it.
See you in 7.
Again, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We do appreciate it. For Jeff Henson, my name is Darnell Duff, and we'll chat with you around the clock.
That's a wrap for this week on the Heavy Hitters Podcast. Don't forget to give the guys a follow on Twitter at It's the Duffy One and JHenson73. You can also keep up to date with the podcast by visiting the Heavy Hitter Podcast on Facebook. Duffy and Henny will return next week, but for now, keep it real and keep it heavy hitting.